Very good morning to you. I almost went too soon at the beginning there. I do apologise for that. You're very welcome at this early morning session. What the hell's big data and why does it matter to creatives? We have a stellar cast for you this morning. We do have one pre-recorded item for you. I come from the world of radio, so that immediately makes me feel incredibly happy. I'm very much your cabin staff this morning. What we're going to do is hear from Kenn Cukier, first of all, and he is our pre-recorded man. He's going to tell us exactly what big data is and where we're at with big data. We're then going to hear two presentations, the first from Adrian Letts and the second from Mark Boyd. We may then have a discussion up here on the stage, but what I would say, there's nothing worse than leaving a session feeling that you still have a question inside you. It's a dreadful form of intellectual kind of constipation. So right from the word go, if you want to ask any of our panellists anything, please do just put your hand up. It's much better than waiting for that little bit at the end where everyone's dying for the loo and wants to go to something else. So are we all ready? Yes, good. Oh gosh, hashtag as well. It's up there on the screen somewhere, hashtag big data. So if you're particularly shy and you just want to tweet us instead of actually putting your hand up, that is completely fine. So our first guest this morning then is Kenneth Cukier. He's worked at the Wall Street Journal in Asia and the International Herald Tribune. He's a former research fellow at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and he is now the data editor of The Economist. He's also been the magazine's Tokyo correspondent, and before that, the paper's technology correspondent in London. He's written a book which is out at the moment. He's the co-author of Big Data, A Revolution That Will Transform How We Live, Work and Think. It's a New York Times bestseller and it's been translated into 16 languages. He is in Washington at the moment, so he has sent us this short report. Now, unfortunately, you can't ask Ken a question because he is in Washington, and that's annoying, isn't it? Because you've all got about 27. But we'll save them up after we've heard from Adrian and Mark. We'll be able to talk a little bit more about things. Adrian's going to go first. Are you ready? You ready? You ready? Make your way to the lectern. Adrian Letts is the Chief Operating Officer of Blinkbox, the UK's largest entertainment streaming service, which had, at the last count, 1 million users a month. Now, Adrian is a former executive from Vodafone. He co-founded Blinkbox in 2006, and in 2011, Tesco acquired an 80% stake in it, using the company to boost its digital entertainment offering. All yours.
Thank you. I don't have a clicker, so I'm not sure exactly how to get my slide.
Next slide, please. We'll probably do it.
There we go. Next slide, please. There we go. This is magic. What I thought I'd do first is just tell you a little bit more about Blinkbox. Blinkbox started as a movie and TV service. We've expanded that in conjunction with Tesco. We haven't quite come up with what the overarching name is, but Tesco Digital Entertainment will do for the moment. We talked about, and what I'm going to focus on today is the movie and TV business, which Fiona talked to. We've just launched Blinkbox Music, which is an on-demand streaming music business, free, ad-supported. Books will launch towards the end of the year, and then we've also launched something called Clubcard TV. And Clubcard TV is a fantastic example of using data. We take the Clubcard data and we use it to improve the customer experience from an advertising standpoint. So imagine a situation. Oh, there we go. Imagine a situation where if you buy Coke, you actually see more Coke ads, or the opposite, which we're toying with, you buy Pepsi, we show you Coke ads. And one of the unique opportunities that we have as Tesco is we can actually track that purchase all the way through. So we can show you the ad and we can actually see whether you buy it in the stores, whether you buy more of it, when you buy it, how you buy it, etc. Now, in terms of big data, I think Kenneth has probably done a better job than me in terms of what is big data, but I think for a service like ours, there's three ways that you can use big data. The first is the quality of experience. Digital entertainment is very nascent. Much as I think everybody's talking about Netflix, House of Cards, it's very nascent. If you do the math and say, do you know what, there's probably 5 to 6 million people in this country who are streaming video online. That's 5 to 6 million versus the 50 to 60 million that are there. So we have a long way to go, and I think the best example I can give you is music. Digital music's been around 15 years. We still sell CDs in our Tesco stores. So it takes a while for customer adoption. You've got to improve the quality of experience. You've got to make it simple. You've got to make it easy to use. You've got to make it reliable. The second is what is your customer proposition? What are the insights telling you? How should you evolve your customer proposition? What devices should you deliver on? Is it better to deliver short-form programming to a mobile, longer-form programming to a tablet, and movie-length programming to the TV? What is it that you're trying to deliver? How do you communicate to that customer? How do you tailor the proposition accordingly? And then the final one, which I think is getting a lot of airplay, is using that data and insight to create programs. And House of Cards is a good example of this. But the other angle to it is, how you personalize the offer. What is it that the customer is really looking for? Amazon has been doing this for years. People who like this also like that. But there's so much more that you can do in terms of generating and delivering something that's actually quite interesting and different. In terms of, I think, sorry, I don't know, pizza popped in there, yeah. I don't quite know how that happened. It was how I was feeling last night. One of the really interesting things, though, for Blinkbox is this online and offline data. Tesco has 3,000 stores. 20 million people a week go through those stores. There is a huge amount of information that Tesco is gathering on what people like to shop, how they like to shop, where they like to shop, what they like to shop, what time of day they like to shop. Peak time of day for a Tesco Extra, the really big ones, is about 10 o'clock, and the peak time of the week is 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Peak time of the week for a Tesco Express, so the little tiny ones, is about 8 to 9 o'clock at night. Average basket size in a massive Tesco store is about £100. In a small little Extra, it's about 10 to 15 pounds. It's much, much smaller. Now, how does that relate to digital entertainment? Tesco sells a huge amount of DVDs. Tesco sells a huge amount of CDs. Tesco is one of the largest booksellers in the country. How people are using, what they're reading, what they're looking at is incredibly important as we try and move them onto a journey. We move them onto that digital road and we start to move them into a digital world. It's not like night and day. It isn't you suddenly go digital. You actually evolve through it. And one of the most important things and the most important learning for us is what might the store be able to tell you in terms of how you evolve the proposition online? What's the sort of things that you can put together? And more importantly, for all the creative types out there, what are people watching? And you're capturing what they're watching offline as much as what they're capturing online. Thank you.
So let me tell you a little bit about Mark. Mark Boyd is the founder of Gravity Road, an entertainment startup seeking to be clever with content. They work with brands as well as creating their own content. And he's also a trustee of the Grierson Trust, which supports documentary making through mentoring and education, and also hosts the British Documentary Awards. He's a former creative director and head of content at BBH. And I should warn you that some of his slides may be saucy. Here he is.
Thank you. I think we were all surprised. There's such a big audience this morning so early at the TV festival, and particularly against the billing of Peter and others this morning. So thank you very much. In a desperate attempt to keep people's attention, I think I decided a while ago to set up this presentation, and I'm now slightly anxious because I can't quite remember some of the slides that we're going to go through. So that will be fun. It felt, when we were discussing this title right at the off, there was an obvious paradox in there that actually TV is now data, and so we are all in the business of data anyway. But it seemed that this title pushed against a prejudice that probably a lot of us in this room have about data, and it struck me that data is, or our anxiety about data is probably wrongly placed. Data is. To be against data is impossible. It is a remnant as we pass through life. We're creating data at every possible moment. It's like dust or carbon dioxide. It's one of our outputs. But it's something that we at probably Gravity Road particularly are very passionate about, because we think it is the most extraordinary creative launchpad for work. And that might surprise people, because actually our perception of data is that it's a negative creative force, that it's focus groups and it's going to dampen down ideas and derivative ideas will pop out the other end. And I hope just to try and make a case that we think it is it's very different to that. In fact, thinking about conversations with commissioners about production companies, and this is maybe controversial, is that a concern often from commissioners is that the data set that production companies use is very, very limited. I remember being with a commissioner when meeting on a Monday, and they were saying, "Oh my God, did you see that article in the Observer at the weekend? I bet you I have 10 ideas based on that article in the Observer. By the end of the week, they had 20 ideas." And so potentially people are using data sets like the Observer, but they're very limited. So we wanted to make a case that actually data is incredibly beautiful. We've learned to love data because it gets us to very exciting places. It literally is beautiful sometimes. This is an algorithm that takes pictures photographed in Boston, lifts them directly from Flickr, uses those colors and replicates them in beautiful ways where you can see the season across the year. As we're all carrying more and more ways of recording and uploading data from our phones, from our Facebook profiles, dating profiles, our Nike Plus elements as well, really interesting, extraordinary businesses are starting up that allow us to begin to assimilate and understand that data in new ways. Businesses like TrickTrack, whereby discovering the food and the coffee you drink mixed with the exercise that you take and things like that might give you a point of view on how healthy and kind of happy you are. And you can see, particularly for people in the fact-ent genre, who've been creating shows where it's been very hard to quantify how data might have been played. How the effect of that show might be made more tangible. Some of these things could become very useful. So I'm now going to digress for a moment before coming back to a very strategic theme. This is taken from a very robust sample, I think 500,000 American adults, based on their dating habits. And you'll see this looks at how many messages men get on dating sites according to their income. So you see, you start off, if you're 18 to 22, and I suspect maybe young, fit, and virile, your income is not a factor there, not particularly of kind of interest. But you see, for men, as you get older, actually your income becomes proportionally more and more important. Now, do with that data what you will. Here is looking at the same data set, which I thought was interesting. This is bisexual men, men who claim to be bisexual on their dating site. And you see, it's interesting that of bisexual men, over half of them only send messages to women, which maybe reveals that in dating, lots of people lie about their profiles. There is a fantastic creative springboard into kind of interesting ideas. Oh, here we go, by religion, people who claim they've never masturbated. Some of you looking nervously. Some of those people looking down at their phones just now. Odd, some people masturbating today. Those people using Twitter now are twice as likely, almost, to masturbate. And I promise you, this is a very statistically robust sample. And I think I just ran with this theme. I use Google Trends, which if people haven't used it, I advise go on there to compare how people are searching for information on different things. I just put two searches in here. Blue line here is the Edinburgh TV Festival, and the red line is people searching for sex in Edinburgh, and I noticed there is undoubtedly some correlation there, but I will leave that for others to draw conclusions for. So I think the point that wanted to make in terms of how we are using data, I should say I have no particular skills with data, and we work with some very brilliant people who are great in it, but we use them as and this is, I think, a learning that the production industry, TV production industry, could, one of the good learnings from advertising is that we see insight and statistical analysis as the first creative department. It is drilling into data to get to insight, because the data is relevant, bluntly, an insight that will get us to a radically different idea. It is how in advertising, invariably, we've all got to different ideas. So I agree wholeheartedly with Kenneth's point. I think we are researching those, and there are so many different data sets available that we can build insight from and build ideas from. We have a comedy show which is we are going to deliver, which we've just delivered to Channel 4, where as much of the first presentation was about the idea, it was about the territory that we wanted to occupy and why it was very current and different and very topical to other people. So research there played a really interesting role. Testing is very useful. When we pitched our idea, understandably, some of the commissioners in the room were expressed concern that their audience might not be interested or might not feel the same about our idea, and we were able to actually say, well, I know how they feel. We released this idea to 1,000 Channel 4 viewers and non-Channel 4 viewers. Non-Channel 4 viewers hate this idea and call it poppycock. Channel 4 viewers really like it, so we were using to test and sell it. During the process, we have kind of iterated that idea. And actually, what's so important now in terms of the creation of ideas and how we send them out there is learning how we package ideas properly for the new world. So often now when we're creating work, creating ideas, we're potentially, we're testing titles in algorithm to see, for example, for YouTube audiences, whether they really like particular titles or whatever. We're maybe launching 3 ideas and we're taking, or 3 versions of the same thing, and we're taking 2 down after 48 hours once we've learned which one works. So it becomes all important in distribution as well. So all of that is a way of saying, actually, for us in many ways, it's not about data, it's about insight. Other people's prejudice about data is a wonderful thing because it gives us lots of space to get on with it and maybe makes it harder for other people to come up with genuinely fresh ideas. It's reassuring and helping us develop ideas as we go, and it's a critical part of distribution going forward. So in conclusion, for us, data is beautiful and it is the most wonderful creative springboard. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any questions so far before we launch into... Oh, my goodness, you've got an alarmingly quick armpit. Yes, would you wait for a microphone to just come into you, please? Do we have a microphone? Yep, gentleman right in the centre there. And if you can just tell us where you're from when you're asking the questions as well, that would be helpful. Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. There it is.
Thank you. Justin Judd from Hulu. Notwithstanding the first presentation, I don't think any of you have really given a meaningful definition of what big data actually is. Where does it come from? How are you guys getting hold of it? How are you aggregating it? How are you interrogating it? We need that in order to have a kind of meaningful discussion, I feel.
Fantastic. Right. Well, Adrian, what do you mean by big data?
I think big data is any data source that you can quantify. It is robust in terms of an ability to spot a trend. It is useful in terms of what you can do with it. In terms of your second question, how are we using data? I think the challenge with big data is there's so many ways that you could use it. And one of the iterations and kind of why I had the circle of offline and online is we are figuring it out.
So just back up. You say any data. What do you mean by data? Collecting email addresses, people collecting ages, demographics. Be more precise, please.
I think it's genuinely hard to be precise because there are so many sources of data out there. It covers a whole range of digital data, and that is we are collecting. We are looking at we are looking at qualitative and quantitative data around people's lifestyle, health issues. We're looking at what people are consuming, what people are searching for online. To live at the moment is to generate and create data. That data exists in a whole range of different places.
But where do you get it from? I mean, the fantastic graphs that made us laugh.
The ridiculous chart on the television festival is available openly to everyone via Google Trends. It allows you to cross-tabulate by country, by time, different data sets, any possible information that you want to use in terms of how people are searching for stuff. It is behavioural detail at any point. I think we're trying to use.
Adrian, do you only use at Blinkbox the data made available to you by Tesco's, which is phenomenal through the club card system, isn't it? Or do you buy in other data from the tools?
We buy in other data. We use Tesco data. We use the freely available data that we can take out of things like Facebook.
Can you buy Netflix's data, for instance? Do you? You can definitely target Netflix customers. There's plenty of data available from a digital marketing standpoint that allows you to target Netflix customers. Do we specifically go and buy Netflix data? No.
Yeah. So there's plenty of freely available data. There's data that's available to buy. There's proprietary data. Some of the data I use there around dating comes from an American dating site, and it mixes direct information that people have entered themselves. It takes in demographic data, and it extrapolates out the other way. So there is the challenge is not access to data because there is so much data available. The challenge is developing any meaningful insight from that that one can begin to use to potentially develop ideas for.
But going back to your question, data is something that's measurable and comparable. And what you're really trying to understand is, based on a number of different measurements, what is the trend and what can you predict based on the things that you are seeing from that measurement of that data and comparing it.
Or it is what is not happening. One way we use data is to try and identify lags. Where everybody else is doing one thing, why is nobody else doing something over here?
Yeah. Is that helpful enough to you for a start?
No, it's got behavioural insight.
Yes, yeah.
Very specific way.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously the thing worth bearing in mind for this session is that nobody has all of the data. I mean, you can find bits of data, and I think especially, and hopefully we'll get on to talk about this, within the commissioning process, presumably now, you could always find some data that is going to help you with your commission. Two gentlemen down here would like to ask a question. I think you want to actually respond to something that Mark's just said, so do you want to go first and then I'll come to you?
I was saying exactly what you said. I'm Jonathan Kay, and I'm a disability consultant.
Yeah.
On a number of projects, and I am involved in broadband and television. And I want to challenge what you just said about big data, because in my understanding and my world, big data means things like video and things where the quantity of the data is big. It doesn't matter, it's not about little analytical things about how people use it, but it's tiny data.
Sure, but that would just, I mean, that's an argument about the semantics and the label, isn't it? Not about the content of everything we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I understand the point. I think that particularly where we're trying to talk about the connection between data and creativity, we're going data as a stimulus to get people going with ideas. So I understand the point about language.
Thank you. Gentleman down here in the front row. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Adipat Verdi. I run a consultancy called Transmediology. We also look at big data, and we've sort of defined a difference between data and big data as being, there's qualitative and quantitative data, whereby it's about setting up a design process, feeding qualitative data back into that design process to give us iterative processes for design. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'd like to pick up and ask you about, surely what we've talked about is the collection of data and presenting the results. And there's two key things here is, are we actually defining the framework by which we're collecting the data? So it's not just the data we're collecting, but what is the specific purpose for that data, i.e. how do we define that data set? And second, correlation isn't causation. So, and I'd particularly like to cite the slide of Twitter, because I'm a very heavy Twitter user. Yeah. And it's, so, seriously though, just because there's a lot of correlation doesn't mean that we're actually answering the question that we've set out. And if what we're trying to do here is to use it as a creative process, and we believe that data is story and story is software, so we use it as a very big part of how we design sort of experiences. Is that something that you can comment on and give us some feedback on?
I think what's already becoming clear in the session is there is a lot of data, and people are using it in very different ways, both whether that's platform design, creativity, program development, or whatever. And I absolutely take your point about causation, and I think my point was I was just trying to, whereas the TV production community are not, have been historically closed to using data as a creative stimulus. I was trying to make the point that there are interesting insights one can build there that could get people to very different ideas, and that actually data is something that can provide or can create great opportunities, as opposed to something that will thwart creativity. I think that was our point.
Can I just chuck in one quote from Kenn Cukier's book, which is a fantastic read, especially if you want to better understand what the future might look like. And he says, specific area expertise matters less in a world where probability and correlation are paramount. Gut instinct becomes less of a revered quality. Now, isn't that essential to any debate that we have about creativity versus big data? Because you surely don't ever want to get to a point where you can justify anything with the data, so it takes away your ability, particularly within the commissioning process, to go, that's it.
Absolutely.
I feel it, I can see it.
What we're not saying is that there is some machine somebody is building somewhere where ideas pop out the bottom of it. We're saying it is some stimulus and a tool for creative people, and it will ever be thus. It needs people with that rich sense of, that rich stimulus to get to very different ideas, it will ever be thus. It is a great opportunity for creative people.
But isn't the danger that you as a creative will always be able to see that, but actually the people who are crunching the numbers and need to make the money will want a justification from the data that might take away that gut instinct?
I think we were talking earlier about the kind of piloting process and how studio execs and producers and things like that are finding the amount of data around them to be something that might thwart their process. So they are, frames are being researched, plot lines are being researched, and things like that. And I can understand that process is a difficult one. The flip side of that is there are lots of production companies and young producers just now who, instead of going through that traditional piloting process, are creating things and releasing them on YouTube as ideas and things like that, and are developing data around that. Ideas are taking off very quickly. People are responding, liking, commenting on stuff, and they're learning from that, using that data, and taking that back to other media owners to sell their ideas in further.
Kevin Spacey said in the McTaggart last night, though, that it was data that enabled Netflix to actually commission the whole of House of Cards. So they went and looked at big data. And it's hard, isn't it, to know what that means. You go into a room and just look at big data. But it led them to say, yes, we're going to run with it. We won't even just say, make a pilot. I'm not sure that I really understand why other companies wouldn't have been able to do exactly the same thing and come to the same decision. Just the bravery of Netflix. What did they see that other companies couldn't see?
I think their ability to capture data is far greater than necessarily a broadcaster. Although that is changing very, very quickly. The registered number of users for something like 4OD is into the millions. And understanding the sorts of things that respond and play out well is increasing. I think there is a good story in the Netflix House of Cards proposition, in that it was something new and it was innovative and it was groundbreaking. The fact that the data bore out that Kevin Spacey, in a drama about Washington,
would kind of
work. I mean, I'm no commissioning editor. You don't need data to figure that one out.
Exactly.
But it's interesting. But that's so true, isn't it? But it's interesting that Kevin Spacey, flagged up data as kind of being on his side in that. I mean, I don't know whether it was just a moment of modesty for him. But equally, you could look at Ben Elton's recent sitcom, and you could say that somebody would have looked at the data that said Ben Elton, revered national institution of comedy. This is bound to work. But actually, the data that came afterwards, suggested that it might not.
But we talked earlier. But we talked earlier. I mean, I think there's a danger, and I think this is your point on correlation and causation, is that you spin yourself into an infinite loop. How many more superhero films do we need? Clearly, the data is telling you that everybody likes superhero films. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should make another superhero film to take the whole thing on.
Which is where the gut instinct of a commission
exactly.
to go,
and I think
not.
if you go back to the slide I showed in terms of the ways that you can use data, one of the things that we find really fascinating is you begin to understand how people consume programming on their tablet. But what does that mean in terms of the sorts of features that they would like to have? I mean, do they want the screen to flip? Do they want it to rotate? Do they want search function up in the top right-hand corner, or do they want it in the left-hand corner? We can begin to test and understand and make a robust test through the data that we capture by putting it out. And Amazon does this brilliantly well. But that jump to a new paradigm, I don't think Steve Jobs sat in a room and said, what does the data tell me? How do I create a touch screen?
Yeah.
How do I create an iPad? How do I create an iPhone? He's basically looking at it and thinking outside the box. Data would tell you he's on the right track, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Creative ideas are as valuable or more valuable.
A gentleman up there was waiting for ages, and then, madam, I'll come to you. So, microphone, yes, there we go, thank you.
Hi, morning. My name is David Graham from a company called Attentional. I was just thinking about this big data question, so I have a question for you. Would it be, which made me think, well, what's small data then? So if you take something like a Nielsen panel or a bar panel, you've got a panel specifically defined to represent a population which has been sampled, then you've got a direct path to an output which has been predefined. Whereas you're talking about a much more, if you like, wide-ranging use of various data sets, much less well-defined in their nature, used as a kind of stimulus as much as a defined result generator. So would you then say something like the bar panel, the Nielsen panel, is small data because of its nature, whereas you're talking about this larger and, if you like, more variegated mix, which you're calling big data?
The bar, I need to go back to my numbers on Barb, but Barb is not the greatest, the largest It's not the biggest data round. It's weighted.
5,000 people on the panel.
Yeah. So
each person on that panel is weighted to represent 5,000 people in the population.
Tess saying 11,000 people. Yeah. I mean, interestingly, we used some data around dating patterns. That was 500,000 people. Probably the most robust thing was using Google Trends, where you're finding out what billions of people are searching for a day. I know the subject is big data. I think for us, it's building insights around any data that allow us to get to different and interesting ideas and themes and territories.
And it's mainly about scale. Is it? Big data is just lots and lots of people, or lots and lots of data.
It can be about depth. It can be depth as well. You know, it can be taking one group, and with that tick track stuff, I can use all the data points I carry with me, my Nike Plus fuel band, my mobile usage, the GPS tracking of how far I move from my house, all of those things, to build up real depth of data about my behavioural habits. So it could give both of those.
But I think, you know, the point more is technology allows you to collect more and more data, but technology also allows you to process that data. So 5,000 homes and 11,000 people was probably in its day quite big data because of the technology available to capture it, because of the technology available to process it. You've moved on so far. The amount of processing power in your iPhone is probably similar to the computers that they used to launch man on the moon in 1969. Now, it's more to say the quantum of things that you can do and the quantum of trends that you can spot, the aggregation of that data set and the information that provides to then inform where you might want to go or not want to go, as the case might be, is the opportunity. But it's not the be-all and end-all. It's just more stuff that will help you plot a path and plot a journey and start to figure things out.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, thank you. Lady down here, and then we've got a gentleman up there. You're about to get two microphones at once.
Stereo, I love it. Tess Alps from Thinkbox. It's a really annoying phrase, isn't it, big data, because television's always had lots of data and research. And I think what I really think we mean by big data is personal information, personalised information, built up by lots of individual actions, whether it's in a Tesco store at a till or it's on your tablet. As opposed to samples or focus groups or other. It's all research and it's all potentially insight, and we can gather together those individual actions to get one big insight to help you decide what to make. But I think actually lots of people in this room are interested in the other end of big data, which is just fragmenting into more personalised things. So if we know more about individuals, should we be personalising our programming, even if it's only to the extent of having a Scottish voiceover for that documentary in that region or in that household who live in Scotland but in London, but we know they're Scottish, or personalising advertising. So I suspect big data really means that how personalised are we going to make our content and our advertising?
Yes, it's a really good point. So let's move it on to that. I mean, you take up the first vanguard of the answer, because when you take along your creative ideas, in the future, you will be able to say exactly that. We could provide this programme all around the country with a different voiceover. We could be selling a different add-on product. I mean, the opportunities are enormous.
We see that. We run one of YouTube's original funded channels where we're generating, I think it's 50 minutes of short-form content a week. And we're seeing that, you know, the moment we launch any film, or we launch it in different iterations. We're learning from it, we're adapting it almost in kind of real time. We're anticipating people's comments, how people are liking it and things like that, and it allows us to tailor that content to match what people are interested in.
But do you think it will lead to people taking more risks in that fragmentation in terms of what actually gets made?
I really genuinely think it can, because used properly, it can help reveal interesting, countercultural sometimes, themes that other people aren't spotting. It allows you to test prejudices and hunches and things like that. It can help make a case for an idea. It can help sell in an idea, and ultimately it can help distribute ideas.
If you were making programs, and I know that it's not on the cards at the moment, but you don't rule it out at Blinkbox, do you, that you would become a commissioner like Netflix?
One day we may well.
Yeah.
I think we're at the start of the journey, and this was kind of the point I was trying to make before, is we're into a new medium. And the level of personalisation that Tess is talking to is absolutely something that we could do. The problem I have is, at the moment, people just using their iPad to watch a television show is a small proportion of the population. What we're more interested in right now is what is the data telling us to how to move them onto that platform and build a revenue opportunity for us all to then build a market that you can start to commission the level of personalisation that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think, Mark's point on YouTube is exactly the right one. It is starting to show you that niche programming really works because you've got a global audience instantaneously who is sufficiently large, although maybe not so large right now in terms of the monetisation, to resonate. Yeah. And support the production costs and the effort that goes into creating that programming.
We've only got about 5 minutes left, so if you do want to ask a question, now would be a good time. There was a lady here. Yes?
Hi, Debbie Christie. Specifics would be really useful. So in the Channel 4 comedy, what data did you use? Where did you source it? And at what point did it actually interact with the creative process? At what point did you merge those? Because clearly Telly uses data an enormous amount. So just to talk us through how this was different and where, what is the comedy to start off with, but also where are the kind of exciting moments when you go, because of the data, we will do this in a different way. Just specifics are really great.
I mean, it's hard to talk about the specifics of that show at the moment because it's about to come out. But
Oh, go on. No one
we
else
were
can.
talking. I mean, it is a mixture.
That's why we're here. She's going to deck you if you don't.
We could do it afterwards with a microphone. But it was using a whole range of. It was stuff from Google Trends, Twitter, desk research. It was then using some demographic information. We released stuff to a qualitative panel online to test the kind of ideas. We used knowledge of how people were. Oh my God, that's my mum. That's the Channel 4 lawyer saying don't speak about it.
Tell her. Don't tell her.
We then used a lot of data about how people are using social media. Because that was intrinsic to the idea. That was a large part of the idea. And we kind of pulled that up together in a presentation. And what we're finding with the ideas that we're presenting is we're trying to create a context for that idea, and data becomes very important in providing that context. Why is an idea like this relevant today to this audience? And when we're presenting ideas, it's almost, it's a three-part presentation. This is why this idea is relevant. We're not going straight in with the idea. This is the context for the idea. Here is the idea, and then here is then how we will use data and lots of channels to distribute that. But it's a mix of all of those things.
Does that help, madam? No.
Well, It
Yeah, but do you know what? You may have. But
One you could share. I don't want to spoil your
yeah, no, absolutely.
Use this, and it's great that we found this. That would be terrific.
Yeah, we are finding ourselves using Google Trends, which is a freely available piece of software, to check ideas and prejudices constantly. We are using. I just demonstrated one there that we could do. We are using. Online panels and surveys.
I'm just trying to get how that translates into, and as a result, we wrote this brilliant scene, or we cast these people.
Yeah.
And if you can't share that, that's fine. But where that translates across.
Fine.
But is this part of the problem, do you think, whereby there's a kind of smoke and mirrors about big data, where people have become so excited because it can tell you so much about a purchase that actually we've laid that excitement onto a creative process, and it ain't that much different to what has gone before, where you would go into exactly the same commissioner. You would say, this is why we love the idea, this is what it's like, but it's slightly different, so it's going to work. And here's a small focus group who we've shown it to, and they think it's great. I mean, is it really so radically different to that?
I'm just trying to think of another example. It'd be useful. We were looking at some data on, at the end of last week, a new survey out, freely available, on sexual health in the UK. And particularly, one of the group with fastest growing, when you dig into the data, the group with the fastest growing, sorry, this seems to be a similar theme to some of my slides earlier, fastest growing rate of STDs is in adults 50 plus. Lowest growth of STDs is in adults 30 plus, adults 30 to 40. Within that data, there seems to be an unusual theme where the perception is that young people, where the perception is that an older demographic audience is more conservative. Actually, the reverse seems to be true. The parents of these 30-year-old children, for a whole range of reasons which are revealed in data, baby boomers, property prices, a whole range of things, have an unusual freedom that actually their children don't have. Within there seems to be, there could be an opportunity for a factual entertainment series that plays off those two tensions. Older conservative parents who actually aren't conservative at all, with younger kids who actually are much more concerned about their professionalised kids at a young age or something like that. You could build a kind of faking it type proposition out of that. That's just one example off the top of my head.
There's a gentleman just behind you who would like, I think, probably the last question.
Mark Sturkey, I work with SVT, the public service television company in Sweden. Very fascinating, and of course it's also being discussed in other countries than the UK. Listening to you, you're talking about it as part of a global phenomenon, but would you say that this is something that is more true for the English-speaking world, or is this something that is being applied also in other cutting-edge companies working in other cultural contexts as well? And if so, can the data that you gather actually be used and transferred between different cultural and language areas? Do you see the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of points I would make. Tesco uses club card throughout the world. And club card data informs how they lay out the shops, how they communicate, how they price, all of those sorts of things. But what is interesting is some of the learnings in some markets, because of the rate of transformation, are very different to other markets. So the rate of mobile phone growth in emerging markets and the changes that is causing in customer behaviour in the stores is quite pronounced. Whether you can use that changing behaviour to project on what might happen in the UK, for example, is things that we are learning and beginning to understand. The data that is being thrown up, and this is the ironic thing for me, is the data is universal. There's not as limited sources of data set about people's internet behaviour in emerging markets now because the mobile phone is so ubiquitous. Beginning to understand how those trends then relate to something like YouTube is really, really interesting, because YouTube is a global market. It's an instant global market, and something that might be working in Korea, which is a great example, suddenly becomes a global number one. Through that platform, through the trends, through the sorts of things that it was related to. And I think what is really interesting about that, global number one from Korea was it was the YouTube algorithm that threw it up based on all of the data that brought it to the world attention. And it's not just an English-speaking market that's going to throw that up. It could be anywhere, because you're bringing it all together and merging it as one.
We've got to finish there, I'm afraid, but thank you all for coming. I sense that there's an air of frustration maybe from some of you. I could recommend Kenn Cukier's book, though. It's a great place to start. So go and have sex, and if you're Jewish, go have sex with yourself. Goodbye.